What's up, everybody? It's Peter Tragos, the lawyer you know, and on this channel, we break down the trials and cases you care most about so you can understand how the American civil and criminal justice system works. And we try to make sure you understand what your rights are in every situation, which is why we try to walk you through the entire legal process while also answering your insightful questions along the way. And while it's not legal advice, it's always exciting. So buckle up for another episode of The Lawyer You Know. What's up, everybody? Back here. Still talking this Idaho 4 case, and my second screen is not working. We're having some technical difficulties here today. And the live chat, I guess, wasn't on, but now it is. Hello from Greece, Angela. That's cool. A lot of stuff is happening. And when we follow cases like this, it's not so common that this much information is coming out every day. This much potential change is coming out every day. It's actually pretty uncommon. So we're going to walk through a lot of things. It would be awesome if I had my notes, which I don't here. I don't know why this is not working. So we're going to hit all of them. Okay. It may not be in the order that I had planned initially. But the first thing I want to talk about is we've got more reaction from the Gonsalves family and their attorney. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to and look at the signed extradition waiver by Bryan Kohberger. We're going to look at that. We are going to look at some tweets that explain some things that I think you all would be interested in. And then we are going to look at the gag order, of course, and talk through what it means, what it gags, who it gags, what they can say, what they can't, what evidence we will see, what we won't, and how we, as the public and as YouTubers and influencers and people on social media, how we can actually affect what may happen in the future of this case. We'll talk about that. And then at the very end of the video, if you want to stick to the end, we have the first stop in Indiana for Bryan Kohberger and his dad when they were driving from Washington State University to Pennsylvania. We saw the second stop last video. I've got footage now from the first stop, and this is actually considerably more interesting and more details coming out in this first stop than we saw in the second stop. So if you're new to the channel in the Idaho 4, let me know, because I always like finding how new people found our channel. I know a ton of you are still here from Depp or from Brooks or from Rittenhouse or whatever it may be. And I appreciate and love all the longtime subscribers. And you'll see if you're new here that this chat is amazing. This community is amazing. People are very welcoming and nice and respectful. We can disagree. We do disagree. We must disagree. We all have to think and bring our backgrounds into this, right? So we can disagree and discuss this stuff, but we like to do it with grace and treat other people how we want to be treated and realize we may be wrong with some of the things that we think. And that's okay. But that's why you should discuss things and argue in a way that if you were wrong, you wouldn't be embarrassed by the way that you argued about it. Right? I think that's a good way to go into an argument. And since I argue for a living, that's what I always try to do. Never go too hot or too cold. Blondie, welcome. A lot of new people, which is awesome. Okay. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, but let's get to it. What do you guys want to start with? Let's start with the extradition waiver. That's an easy one to start with. We've talked so much about this already. We know that he waived it. Here it is. So Strasburg, Pennsylvania, January 3rd, 2023, hereby certify Bryan Kohberger of my own free will do voluntarily agree to return to the state of Idaho as a prisoner from the county of Monroe, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and for the purpose of answering the charges. Okay, so what does this mean? He's doing this voluntarily and of his own free will. So by signing the bottom of this, he is waiving his right to say that he was coerced or forced to go to Idaho. He is waiving his right to make any arguments that extradition is improper or that he is not, in fact, Bryan Kohberger that's on this arrest warrant in Pennsylvania. Okay. Next. Furthermore, I hereby waive all formality and I am willing to return to the state of Idaho without governor's requisition or other papers necessary in such cases, and do exonerate the county of Monroe from any blame, compulsion, or interference in this connection. Signed, Bryan Kohberger. He certifies that it was read to him and signed by him. The agreement was made without compulsion, threat, or force on the part of the authorities, hereby upon free desire of Bryan Kohberger, and he signed it again. So again, we've got somebody right down the road from here. It's wild when these cases happen. You'd never think that it would happen in your backyard. So he is waiving any arguments to extradition. We knew this was happening. This is the official word that he's done. He is clearing the county of Monroe of any wrongdoing. For instance, in the past, if you think about it, somebody could sue the county of Monroe. People talk about a wrongful arrest, a wrongful extradition. He shouldn't have been shipped 2,000 miles from Pennsylvania to Idaho. He needs, damages for this. He's waiving all of that. He's waiving all of that at this point, any wrongdoing on their part. All right. Next, let's get to the video of the Gonzalez parents and a little update about what they know, what they think, and to me, right, we've been following this case, and we kind of started when, whoops, what happened there?
Right now,
we started when they hired an attorney, right? And that was one of the, we don't need the whole intro. That was one of the interesting parts to me, when they hired an attorney to pressure the law enforcement officers to make sure the case doesn't go, cold, to keep the pressure on. They hired an investigator. They hired a lawyer that had been a prosecutor, that is a criminal defense lawyer. We had gone through all that, and that's kind of where we started. And a lot of you had the question as to why would the victims need a lawyer? Why would they do this stuff? Do they really want to pressure law enforcement? My answer was yes, but they want to pressure it in a way that makes them rise to the occasion. We're all on the same team. We're all trying to do the best. We're all trying to get the person who did this. Let's make sure that we get the right person. Don't let it go cold. Don't get lazy. Keep the pressure on. That's a lot of what our discussions were early on in this case and early on in this investigation. We get a really good insight into that right here, and whether or not Kaylee's dad hates law enforcement, think they did a horrible job in this case, or what he thought, what he felt, why did he do what he did. We get those answers in this interview, which is what's really telling and interesting to me, and a really positive interview, in my opinion.
Steve, it took the law enforcement a while. It looks like they got they went very deep, and they were very creative, and they looked at databases, and they were able to match DNA from a database, which I think was pretty sophisticated investigating on their part. How do you feel the police have handled all of this?
So in the chat, I may have given it away already with kind of my setup of this clip, but what do you think he says? How did law enforcement handle this? In Steve Gonzalez's opinion, how did law enforcement handle this? Let me know in the comments if you're part of the rewatch crew. But if you're in the chat, how do you think he answers this question? Because this was an interesting question. And I think he may have answered it differently 2 or 3 weeks ago than he did now. But let me know what you think, how you think he answers it.
Well, there's a lot of pressure even for them. I think that, it's never fast enough for a father. You're impatient and you want to know everything right then and there. But I feel good. I feel like they've done a tremendous job. I know that they have been working hard. We just had a lot of holidays. These guys were working out of town. I really appreciate all the effort that they gave. I mean, there was times where I was tough on them, but I know these are strong men and women, and I know they can handle just a little bit of pushback, and we are where we want to be, and they've put us there.
So that's about as glowing of a review as you can get from a victim's family as law enforcement. He said, it's never fast enough for a victim's father. That's exactly what we said on this channel. We don't blame him because it can't happen fast enough. If it was the next day, frankly, it wouldn't be fast enough for some victims' parents. This is horrible what they're going through. It's miserable what they're going through. They don't deserve it. Nobody should have to go through this. So there's nothing that's going to satisfy them, right? We already know that. But I think that this answer was great. I think this answer was gracious, was appropriate, was kind. He appreciates the fact that a lot of people just expect law enforcement and firefighters. I've got friends in law enforcement and firefighters, and we joke all the time that they got to work Christmas Eve. They got to work Christmas. They got to work New Year's. They got to work New Year's Eve, Thanksgiving, whatever it may be. He recognized that. He appreciated that. He complimented that. He said that, they are the reason this happened. And he's very excited about the fact that they did get the suspect, and hopefully they got the right person. We are doing the gag order right after this.
Christy, I know for myself, I have 2 kids. If this ever happened to me, I can't put myself in your shoes. You can't really understand unless you go through something like that. What would you like, assuming there's a guilty verdict in this case, the murderer of your daughter? What do you think a just punishment is?
Well,
What do you think she says? What would a just punishment be in this case, asking the mother of the victim? Let me know in the comments, in the live chat. What do you think her response is?
considering that this person went in there that night with the intent to kill and showed no mercy, unprovoked, and killed our daughter, her best friend, and their 2 friends. We are glad that we live in the state of Idaho with the death penalty.
Shannon, we'll give you the last word as the lawyer from.
Most people guessed it right. She basically said, we think he deserves the death penalty. We're happy we're in Idaho where we have the death penalty. Let's hear what the lawyer says here at the end of the video now.
The legal side, you know that the evidence that they have, more probably than the public. Where do you see it going?
Well, we're looking forward to the probable cause affidavit and seeing what information they have.
So he says, Hannity says, I'm sure you have a lot more information than we do. And Shannon Gray initially says, we're looking forward to seeing the probable cause affidavit because they haven't seen it either. It doesn't seem like they have much more evidence than the public does at this point.
Having that affidavit, it won't show the entire case, obviously, but will give us an idea of what hard evidence they have towards the defendant in this case. And we're hopeful that it's strong. And moving forward, we're just the beginning of the criminal justice system. So it's still a long haul from here, but we're hopeful and optimistic.
All right, Shannon.
A really great answer, right? We're hopeful that they have a great case against him, that they've built a great case against him. We're hopeful in what this looks like. We're hopeful in where it's going. A really great answer by the attorney here. Let's recognize a few new members here. Kimberly Arnold, welcome to the crew. Denny Robb is a new member, as well as Elena M. and A. Y. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the membership crew. Let's get to the gag order, okay? I think that's why most of you are here. Here is the gag order. And Brian Enton, if you're not following him on Twitter, he's doing some great reporting on this case, has been on it from the jump. I'm going to shout out a few people here that we're going to talk about. Moscow police say they will no longer be communicating with the public or the media about the Brian Kohberger case. Judge is prohibiting any communication by investigators, law enforcement attorneys, and agents of the prosecuting or defense attorney. Okay, so he's answering some of our questions, but let's look at it a little closer. The court, by stipulation of the parties. Okay, so that's important right off the jump. The court, by stipulation of the parties, meaning Brian Kohberger and the prosecutor's office both agree and stipulate to this gag order. Now, why? We can speculate about that later, but this is a fact. They agree. It is hereby ordered that the parties to the above titled action, including, okay, so the parties, the state of Idaho and Brian C. Kohberger, right? We know who Brian C. Kohberger is. We know who that party is. Who is the state of Idaho? Where have we heard this before? Who actually is the state of Wisconsin? Do you see them here? Anybody see them? I don't see them. Have you ever talked to the state of Wisconsin? So the state of Idaho, who is that? Well, they do kind of a good job laying it out. And we learned through Darrell Brooks who was involved in the state of Wisconsin, right? Including investigators, law enforcement personnel, attorneys, and agents of the prosecuting attorney. That's basically the state of Idaho. That's that party. Okay. All the investigators, law enforcement personnel, not just officers, attorneys, and then agents, right? That's investigators. That's all sorts of people. That's secretaries, paralegals, receptionists, whatever that work at the prosecutor's office. So who does this gag order affect? Everybody on the prosecution side, from law enforcement to the lawyer's office, to the investigators, everybody. Or the defense attorney. So that's Kohberger, his defense attorney, and the agents of the defense attorney are prohibited from making extrajudicial statements outside of court, written or oral. They can't post on their Twitter. They can't make a YouTube video. They can't talk to a reporter concerning this case, other than a quotation from a reference to, without comment, the public records of the case. So, does that mean they can quote something that's going to come out in a public document? Probably. What will that look like? Will they even try to toe that line? Because, as Ariana asked, if the gag order is not filed, what would the punishment be? Well, they can be sanctioned. They can be disbarred depending on how bad it is. Violating a court order violating a gag order is just like violating any court order, and it can carry those penalties along with them. They can be sanctioned, they can be fined, they can be reprimanded, they can lose their bar license if it's bad enough. He's not going to be guilty or not guilty based on this gag order and how the parties look at this gag order. All right. The order specifically prohibits any statement which a reasonable person would expect to be disseminated by means of public communication. So no headlines, no press conferences, no more of that. We've seen enough of that in this case, according to the parties and the judge. And there's a lot that we can draw from this. Like, did law enforcement say something the prosecutor's office didn't like, the judge didn't like, the defense attorney didn't like, where they all got together and said, maybe this isn't fair, let's stop doing this? I'm sure you're all going to have a lot of questions about it, so we'll get to that eventually. That relates to the following. This is what they can't talk about. Evidence regarding the occurrences or transactions involved in this case. The character, credibility, or criminal record of a party. A lot of law enforcement officers were asked that in press conferences, and they declined to comment, which was the right decision. 3, the performance or results of any examinations or tests, or the refusal or failure of a party to submit to such tests or examinations. Only one party is going to be having examinations or tests taken, and that's Brian Kohberger. But they can't talk about the performance, results, or even the denials of taking those tests. Number 4, any opinion as to the merits of the case or the claims or defense of a party. So we have already seen comments on this. They think they have a strong case. They think they've got the right guy. They think they've got the only guy that did this. So we've kind of already seen comments on this. Maybe that's what prompted this. Number 5, any matters reasonably likely to interfere with a fair trial of this case, such as, but not limited to, the existence or contents of any confession, admission, or statement given by the defendant. And we know that we've heard that already. We've heard that the defendant asked, was anybody else arrested? And then we heard that the defendant at first waived his right to counsel and then later invoked his right to counsel. I believe some of this, though, we found out from the public defender. So maybe the public defenders in Idaho are trying to gag everything, including that prior public defender, which I think he should be subject to this gag order, since he was, the only reason he was in on this case is because he was a defense attorney for the defendant. Now, he may have an argument that he's not part of it anymore because he only had a limited appearance for this defendant. I would argue he is part of it. Confession, admission, or statement given by the defendant, the possibility of a plea of guilt or the charged offense or a lesser offense, or any opinion as to the defendant's guilt or innocence. So we're not even going to get anybody going out there from the defendant's team, from his legal team, saying he's innocent, he didn't do it. That's interesting. And it just says a plea of guilt. It doesn't say a plea of not guilty, which is interesting. Can they come out and say he's going to plead not guilty, which is what we all expect? It's further ordered that no person covered by this order shall avoid its prescriptions by actions that indirectly but deliberately cause a violation of this order. So you can't be saying, oops, I accidentally did this. You can't tell your publicist who then goes and tells people. You can't tell your friend who just happens to have a YouTube show and then he goes and lets that information out, right? You can't accidentally or try to circumvent this order. Can't do it. Don't do it. Can't do it. It is further ordered that this order and all provisions thereof shall remain in full force and effect throughout these proceedings until such time as a verdict has been returned, unless modified by the court. So this is going to remain in full force and effect until we get a verdict or a resolution, a plea, whatever it may be, unless the court decides to change it, which they can change it at any time. So that's interesting, right? Interesting to actually see the verbiage of the gag order here. All right. So let's get to some questions now about this gag order. Sydney, do you think the gag order will help with all the speculation and false info in social media? Hard to know what is real. I actually think potentially it could make that worse because we're not getting stuff exactly or specifically from law enforcement or the prosecutors or defense attorneys. So it may even create more speculation, but hopefully people stick to the actual public court documents and make decisions or discussions based off that, which is what we'll do on this channel. And then I think it will help that, as you're saying. Stacy is a new member. Welcome, Stacy. Ashley, does the gag order apply to the parents or the parents' lawyer? So the parents are not parties in the case. So this gag order would probably not apply to them. Although if I were them or if I were their lawyer, I would just tell them, assume you're under this gag order. Don't do anything to piss the judge off or to create problems for your son or for the system itself. Mo, I think it's because due to a lot of prejudicial reporting, he is being convicted in the court of public opinion. I think they want to put a stop to it. And Herb is a new member. Potential witnesses, maybe, maybe not. Are they agents of the defendant? Probably not. Are they agents of the prosecution? Not unless they're actually like, a state actor or somebody paid by the state. So here come some of the other questions. Jane, plain Jane. Will this keep the probable cause affidavit from being released? And this is kind of where we're going next. Will the probable cause affidavit still be sealed? Will it be released? Will there be cameras in the courtroom? Will there not be cameras in the courtroom? Will there be microphones in the courtroom? Will there not be microphones in the courtroom? Let's take a look at a couple of other things to help us answer these questions. So first, will the probable cause affidavit be released? And Kathy asked, so does this mean we won't hear anything until after the documents are sealed? Let's look at another favorite of mine, Andrea Burkhart. Definitely somebody you should also go follow on Twitter. She posted this document, which talks about when this warrant is going to be unsealed. When are we going to see this information? When are we going to find out this information? So here we go. In Idaho, this is how it works. The return on warrant. The officer executing a warrant must return it to the issuing magistrate or any other magistrate before whom the defendant is brought pursuant to Rule 5. At the request of the prosecuting attorney, any unexecuted warrant may be returned to the magistrate by whom it was issued and must be canceled by that magistrate. So that means the officers executing this warrant, which were the Pennsylvania police, must return it to the issuing magistrate, which was the magistrate or the judge in Idaho. Once that's returned, then affidavits or sworn testimony and records of proceedings in support of the issuance of search or arrest warrants pending the return of the warrant. Once it's returned, then it gets unsealed. And we expect Brian Kohberger in the next 10 days, probably before the weekend, if I was going to guess, is going to be transported to Idaho. And then within 24 hours, I believe in Idaho, he has to be arraigned, or he has to get his first appearance, not necessarily arraigned, but the judge will then tell him the charges against him, and he will see this affidavit of probable cause. And a lot of people were asking why he would waive extradition. Well, he wants to see what evidence they have against him. All right. So that answers whether or not we're going to get the unsealed document. I think that answer is still absolutely yes. And, eventually we're going to be getting more public documents. I do not think that they are planning on sealing any documents unless it has confidential information. Medical records would probably be sealed. Juvenile records might be sealed. Things like that might be sealed. Okay. He was on his way to Idaho at 6 a.m. this morning. Okay. So he's already on his way. He's back already. Flew private. Okay. So you guys are here with the info. You guys are better than any research assistant anybody could have. Landed in Idaho already, I believe. All right. So maybe by the end of the week, we'll get this probable cause affidavit unsealed. If you guys get it, you know where to find me on Instagram and Twitter at Tragos Law. Find me there, follow me there, and shoot that over to me if you get it. He's either on his way or he's there. Either way, Con Air, Michelle, it does kind of it reminds me of that. Okay, what about cameras and microphones? Are we going to watch and listen to this stuff together? Yes, Betty, what about that? Let's get to that answer. So the answer right now is yes. Cameras and microphones are allowed in the courtroom. There are probably specifications as to where they can put them. What would help us on where this case is going and how I said in the beginning of the video, how we can affect this as people on social media, as members of the public, as members of the society at large, how we can affect this. Well, if only we had a case that was in a similar jurisdiction that made this decision and explained the law to us at this point, we would have a better understanding. Yes, Jose, the first traffic stop video has been released. We're going to watch that at the end of the video, so stick around. We are going to get to that. But we do have that case. We do have a case in the same jurisdiction of Idaho. We do have a high-profile case. We do have a high-profile case that they allowed cameras and recording equipment in the courtroom. And we have the standard of what it takes to remove those cameras. So let's take a look at that. We have looked at this document together in another video already, but I want to try to apply it to this case. This is the Vallow-Daybell case, Idaho v. Vallow-Daybell, as you can see at the top. And this is the order and decision prohibiting video and photographic coverage inside the courtroom. So how did we get here? And we'll discuss the similarities and differences between these two cases, but here's the standard of adjudication, how the court makes its decision in Idaho as to whether or not cameras and recording equipment will be allowed. Idaho Court Administrative Rule 45 sets forth the procedures and considerations for trial courts to evaluate audio and video coverage of public proceedings in Idaho courts. The presiding judge maintains the right to limit audio and visual coverage of any public hearing when the interests and administration of justice requires. We've talked about this, right? We talked about as long as the cameras and the microphones are not getting in the way of the interest of justice, then they can be allowed in there. But when they cross that line, as the judge found in the Vallow-Daybell case, the judge makes the right decision if he feels they cross that line, because he must protect the interest of justice for the accused, for the victims, for everybody involved, because we don't want the cameras and the microphones to create an appellate issue. We don't want them to poison jury pools, make us waste time and resources, getting busting the jury panel, as we call it, not having enough potential jurors, having to come back and do it all over again. We do not want that to happen. So we want the interest of justice to be protected. This is not an absolute right that we get as the public. It is a balancing act between public access and understanding and knowledge and learning from the general public, from the citizens of that county, that state, that city, versus protecting the constitutional rights of the accused. Authorization may be revoked at any time without prior notice when in the discretion of the court it appears that audio-visual coverage is interfering in any way with the proper administration of justice. So this is how we affect the situation. Team World, can social media do anything to make them prohibit cameras? The answer to that is emphatically yes. One of the major reasons Judge Boyce in this Vallow Daybell case removed cameras and audio visual stuff from the courtroom. He's still allowing recordings, and those recordings are being released later. Way less people are watching them. It's just so boring and hard to follow when you can't even tell who's talking. You can't watch demeanor, facial expressions, people on the witness stand. So the reason that in the Vallow Daybell case, it got in the way of the interest of justice is because people were brutal. They were convicting those defendants before the trial started. They were commenting on the makeup, the appearance, the smiles, the laugh. That's a guilty laugh. Look at, she whispers something in her lawyer's ear. Look at the way he looks there. She looks here. Camera zooming in on her face. And the court just had enough. Those were literally some of the facts brought to the court. And the court basically had enough. They do not want to poison the jury pool. They do not want to disparage people that are presumed innocent until found guilty. And so that's why cameras were booted. Let's read the second paragraph. The presiding judge may, at his or her discretion, limit, restrict, or prohibit audio-visual coverage at any proceeding. Any decision regarding audio-visual coverage is not subject to appellate review, which is very interesting that it's not subject to appellate review. So what we need to do together as a community, let's be a voice of reason. Let's go into this presuming him innocent, looking at the evidence that's hopefully public, watching these hearings. Vicky, I think people have a right to watch justice. I 100% agree with you. And that's why we want to watch it. We want to watch justice unfold. We want to watch the system. We want to understand the process together. We all may have friends, family members of or ourselves going through civil or criminal cases at some point in our life. It should not be a daunting task. We have no clue how it works. And this is one of the reasons why we can understand how it works. And yes, Bodie said law channels have the strongest lawyers that fight cameras in the courtroom. Actually, I mean, mainstream media has got some pretty high-powered lawyers as well. But the point is they will fight it just like they fought it in Vallow Daybell. But if the court feels it's crossed the line, it's over, and they can boot him. So let's look at this case objectively. If there's a piece of evidence that makes him seem more guilty and is relevant and tends to prove or disprove his guilt, let's talk about it. This is going to be bad for him. This is going to be good for him. The defense lawyers may make this argument. The prosecutor may make this argument. He's got a connection to this person or not that person. Though I'm not saying we can't talk about the case. I'm not saying we can't speculate. I'm not saying we can't guess. I'm not saying we can't be potential jurors looking at this case. And if we were a juror, what would this make us think? I don't think the court cares about that. I think what the court cares about is personal attacks, jumping to judgment, crucifying people publicly, having people come after his family or his friends or his former employers or former professors or classmates or whatever. That's what we want to avoid. That's really what we want to avoid. Yes, absolutely, Janet. So it doesn't seem like they're closing the doors of the courtroom. In the Vallow Daybell case, it's still a public proceeding. You can still come in there. You can still watch. They're not sealing the doors like happens in a lot of federal cases. You're correct, Janet. I'm talking about public access at large. And in the Vallow Daybell case, they even said, people in this county, if you want to come, we will make room. We will have overflow courtrooms. We'll make sure the citizens that are paying for this basically get a chance to come in and watch. Marty, not sure why exactly, but I think he's going to plead guilty. Just a gut feeling I have. Maybe that's why he wants to see the evidence against him. Very well could be the truth. We don't know at this point. Nothing is official. We know what his public defender in Pennsylvania says, that he thinks he's going to plead not guilty. Tom N. I think Idaho should do a live stream to help pay the court fees instead of taxpayers. That's interesting. Idaho's got a lot of court fees coming, unfortunately. Denny Robb, thank you so much for both of these super chats here. And then we have a question from you. Ask someone who lives in this county, what evidence would someone on this jury possibly see? The problem is almost worse than that, right? It's not what evidence would they see. It's more worrisome of what will they see that is not evidence? What will they see that's actually not authentic? Will they come across a fake Instagram post and think Brian Koberger wrote it and somehow end up on the jury because they forgot they saw it, or they really want to get on the jury so they don't mention it, or whatever it may be? And they end up on that jury and they read this Instagram post that just seemed horrible, or a call into a podcast, which may be legit. I'm not saying it's not legit, but if it doesn't come into evidence and it's not authenticated to the level of being admissible, but that's in the back of their mind, and potential jurors see something like that, that's really problematic. That's really problematic. And that's more of what we're worried about rather than the white Elantra. The jury's going to hear about the white Elantra and whatever those connections are. Seems U.S. court closing, this is from Gloria, as UK courts start to open again. Interesting. Interesting trend she's seeing here. JJ Frank is a new member. What's up, JJ? And Shandy Lee, thanks for the super sticker. All right, more questions coming in. Some people are saying, is it more beneficial to waive a jury trial? No way. Not in my opinion. Pooh Bear. Peter, do you think he initially waived his right to counsel? Seems dumb, especially for his educated background. Again, the reason I'm going to say yes to this, and I think that he did, is because I think this is what his public defender said. And that it's strange, and we can connect dots and try to figure out what it means. And that's some of the problematic nature of some of these comments. Lynn GMB, what is the real reason they don't allow cameras? You mean in federal court? There's lots of reasons, but they are big boy court. They do what they want. Judges are appointed for life. So they don't have, constituents that can vote them out if they don't like how they're handling things. Like in this situation, like Judge Boyce, I think he's done a good job so far. I know there are people that think he's done a horrible job. He can be voted in and out. Federal judges can't. Dog Mama for life. Because of his immense interest in crime, do you think he could have done this horrific act as nothing more than an experiment? We really don't know his motive yet. And that's what I want to kind of see what the connection is to the victims. Did he date one of them? Did he, stalk them and go to their places of employment all the time? Did he see them at a party at their house one time? I really don't know what the motive is at this point. Cheryl, thanks for always finding time for us, Peter. Keep being you, Cheryl. You don't have to worry about that. That's never going to change. Nancy Fricker is a new member, as well as Rosie B. John, would the gag order make it easier to find jurors in a small county? Yes. Since the media has already convicted him in court, in the court of public opinion, they will eventually need to sit a jury in a small county. This county only has 30 people in prison. So we can have a change of venue to a bigger county or to a bigger city nearby. But regardless, the gag order is absolutely going to be in place. I just realized one of my lights isn't on, so sorry if it seems really dark in here. One of my, what was I saying? Oh, so one of the main reasons for the gag order is to prevent poisoning potential jury pools. That is one of the main reasons about it. And again, I keep referencing this because it's such a glaringly obvious similar situation. In Making a Murder on Netflix, the documentary, Stephen Avery, go look at what that prosecutor did in the court of public opinion with press conferences to absolutely taint and poison anybody watching. It would be so hard to go in and think this guy had a chance of being not guilty or even innocent after listening to the prosecutor. Googie Grant. This reminds me of the killing of Ying Ying Zhang in Champaign, Illinois, 2017. I am not familiar with that. Doing this as a PhD experiment, please say no. Well, it would not be very smart to do this as a PhD experiment, since you would obviously never finish your PhD if this is actually something that you did. Gina Gonzalez. I sent you Brian's flight path. Interesting. I don't know. I don't know if I want to see his flight path. I assume eventually he'll end up in Idaho, and then we'll get some more answers. BB McD is a new member. Tara Ellis, will a grand jury convene for an indictment? You know, I don't know if that's how they do it in Idaho. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I believe that is how they do it in Idaho based on Valo Daybell. And they may have already done it. I'm not sure how that process has gone so far, Tara. We'll have to look into that. Kimberly Arnold, thank you for the super sticker. Usually it's within 24 hours of his arrest. But what does arrest mean in this situation? It's definitely not the arrest in Pennsylvania. What will count as the arrest when he gets to Idaho? It could be when he's booked or processed through the jail. So I think it will be roughly within 24 hours of when he gets to Idaho. That's what I would say. All right, let's see here. What else we got? Yeah, Lux Leather said public trials in the 90s were always televised circus, but we did not have social media. I mean, how different the world is now. I mean, for athletes, and they talk about it in celebrities and social media and how different everything is. By the way, Mr. Sanders, I think I showed these poker chips before. How cool are these? They're one of a kind. Sorry, I don't know how you can see these. Peter Tragos, lawyer, you know, poker chips. And if you hear this, that's me just shuffling the poker chips here because, you know, I always got to have my fidget things that I'm dealing with. But yeah, social media made the world so different. And I really think that that is what's changing things here. And that's where these courts are finding that it can get in the way of the interest of justice. Would a change of venue be, I don't know what that means. I think he could change venues. I'll put my hand behind the poker chips and you'll be able to see it. Thank you for that. Hey, look at that. Can you see it better now? There we go. Very cool, right? All right. Linda Sue is a new member, and let's get to that first stop. Okay, and I'm going to warn you. All right, it's all love here. And again, if you're new to the channel, welcome. A lot of these court feeds or body cam footage have audio issues. They're very difficult to hear sometimes. I will try to translate where I can, but there are some important tidbits that you can pick up from Brian Kohberger. And you can also look at his demeanor. To me, he does not look scared. He does not look worried or anything like that. But let me know in the comments what you think when you see his demeanor. And let's listen to some of the answers that he does give. All right, bear with me here on the audio.
Hello. How you doing? How y'all doing today? Good, good. Take a look at your driver's license.
Does he look worried to you? I mean, I guess maybe you could say he does. What is it in your opinion here? As a potential juror, if you saw this, does he look worried?
Real quick, if I could. See, he's right up on that van, man. He was right up.
Seems like he likes to tailgate when he drives, but no issue giving him his driver's license, giving him his identification. Somebody said he changed the plates on the car and did stuff like that. By the way, you can see this is on December 15th, 2022 at 10:42 a.m. So that's a logical time to leave for Christmas break after college, not immediately after these crimes were committed. I just think it's all part of the story, right? It's all part of the story.
On the back end of that van, pulled you over for tailgating. Is this your car? Okay, cool. Where are you headed?
Well, we're coming from WSU.
They don't lie, which they could have, right? I mean, they could have lied. People lie to the cops sometimes, right? They told them exactly where they're coming from. They eventually tell them where they're going. So I don't think the dad knows what's going on. A lot of people have been asking that. The dad definitely doesn't look nervous. I mean, if your son told you he did this and you flew over there to drive with him and you get pulled over, you'd probably be freaking out even more than your son. Again, we're just speculating at this point. But to me, this is all pointing in a positive direction for Brian Kohberger. right? If you're his criminal defense attorney, you may want to play these and be like, look at this guy's demeanor. He was not scared. He was not somebody on the run. They weren't lying to the cops. I got to be honest with you. Every DUI I've had, my client has always said they had 1 to 2 beers, right? Sometimes it's the truth. Sometimes it's a lie. Nobody ever says they had 8 beers before they got behind the wheel. So I just think, why would he lie in the presence of his father? I mean, I don't know. If you're freaking out at that point and you've committed this heinous of a crime, I don't think that you are thinking logically. So somebody just sent me, Peter, look at his right arm just above the hand. I will look at that. And somebody else sent me a screenshot of this. I couldn't really see anything. Tom said, I fabricated to the police a little bit. Lie is a strong word. Okay, fabricated. And yeah, S. Roblem, I would look worried if I was pulled over by the police on the road. And Vicky also said, I'm always worried when I get pulled over. That is true. That is fair. Most people are very worried when they get pulled over at any time and freak out and get nervous. That's a very common response. So that's actually fair. I'm glad you guys brought that up. Again, push back on me if you disagree. This builds good conversation. BB McD, finally caught alive. Hi from Australia. Love your channel and the great factual info you give us. Thank you, lawyer. You know. Put another shrimp on the bobby. Sorry, I can't help myself. Dumb and Dumber was a classic. Grant, this is the video of the first time they were pulled over in Indiana driving from Washington State to Pennsylvania. All right. And then Tom said he hides his right hand. He retrieved his license from the license back from the officer awkwardly with his left hand. Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that, Tom. I'll leave this comment on the screen.
What's WSU?
That is SWAT team area.
So we're okay. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
So I'm having a hard time hearing him too because the traffic. He definitely said SWAT team, and we'll get more of an explanation of this. But Brian said something about a SWAT team, which is interesting, right? And you think maybe he's going to mention something about the Idaho 4 case.
The traffic. So you're coming from Washington State University, and you're going where? Oh.
We're going to be going to Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
So Brian does say something else other than Pennsylvania, and then his dad corrects him and says eventually we're going to Pennsylvania. So maybe I can't really tell what he said, but
We're slightly punchy because we're driving for hours.
Hours, days.
Hours we're driving. Well, almost a day.
Okay. And what did you say about some SWAT team thing? Or
Yeah, there was a mass shooting and everything. We don't know.
so the SWAT had nothing to do with the Idaho 4. He said the mass shooting. Brian is driving. Yes, Allison. So he says the mass shooting. I don't know what he's talking about. If I tried to Google some stuff, see if there was a mass shooting at Washington State, and all I saw was like there was a bunch of false reports of mass shootings.
where?
So I think Retro N is describing what Brian is describing here in the car as well to the officer.
Interesting.
Well, it's horrifying because he's supposed to be universe. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So y'all work at the university there?
I actually do work there.
Oh,
PhD in criminal.
okay.
So they talk about that he does work there. He's getting his PhD, I think he said, in criminology. So again, a bunch of true statements. And I think they were talking about how it's like scary that this stuff happens on campuses. Like it's a very weird kind of meta conversation. If he is in fact the guy who did this, very strange to have this conversation, right? And if it is him, this is like sociopathic type of actions, in my opinion. If he didn't do this, this is evidence that he didn't do this because he's just so calmly able to talk about this story like anybody who would go to a school where this mass casualty has happened or at least reports of it, or he thinks that it may have been that type of an event.
Okay. Yeah, I hadn't heard about that
Thank you, Tom N. So he says Thai food. Okay.
incident. Just yesterday, or?
No, this happened about an hour and a half ago. We're still wrapping it up. We're investigating. I'm not sure there's two shootings, but they did shoot somebody,
Let's see.
and then you don't know about that actually. They were there, out of the window or something.
Interesting.
Huh. So maybe this was not the whole clip. This is the one that I got sent to me. Because Tom, I didn't see him actually retrieve the license back from the officer. So it seems like there may be more than just this clip. But yeah, he doesn't seem to be freaking out. Elena said there was a standoff in Pullman the same day. They got pulled over. So that's wild. And again, I mean, all this broken world we live in, dealing with these things so often that we have one suspect of one mass murder talking about another mass shooting. It's crazy. Lily is the boss. Inside Edition reports the registration and plates of the car from Pennsylvania to Washington on November 19, 2022. Correct. And again, could that be a way to try to seal his identity and try to, cover something up? Or was he actually moving from Pennsylvania to Washington and he decided to change his plates, right? Some of it could be coincidence. Some of it could be dot connecting. But if you're going to change your plates, why not just leave then? There's a lot of things I just don't understand. If he really is this mastermind, I don't think he played it correctly. But who knows? It's hard to get inside these people's heads. I'm not really interested in doing that. John O'Rourke, I feel like cams in the courtroom is something new, even in large counties. Any worries that this small county does restrict the public? Something I don't know what still seems fishy in this case. I don't think they're going to restrict public access unless it's abused or there are issues like what happened in the Vallow Daybell case. There were some old cases that do have cameras in the courtroom. There were. Not to the level it is today, that's for sure, because of how technology has advanced. But there definitely are some old cases. Thank you, Elena M. And Diana Rose is a new member as well. This was, somebody said, Peter, which stop are we watching? Pull up the other one. So we already watched the second stop on the video I did yesterday. So if you want to check that out, check out the video from yesterday. This is the video. This is the first stop that we didn't watch yesterday. Chloe's mom, his birthday is 11/21. That's why he changed them. Plausible explanation. That's what I'm saying. Like a lot of this stuff, there are plausible explanations for a lot of this. And I think this is important to discuss and keep an open mind. Right. But I think, Rocky, they weren't sure at this time. And that's what it kind of seemed like. I thought he said it was a school shooting or something like that. And again, their facts may have been wrong, but it's kind of like their present sense impression, to pull a quote from the cop we heard last time. So that's kind of why we're talking about, is that he thinks that this is what's happening. Azam, thanks for the super sticker. Deborah D, his calmness makes me wonder if he really did it. I need to hear the actual evidence. I mean, I think that's really how it should always be, right? We should always want to hear the actual evidence. Peggy, I know this is the weird thing we talked about on the last one is, are they asking where they're going so they can continue to follow them? Is this part of the surveillance that we just don't know about? Or do these officers really just have no clue that this could be the most wanted man in Idaho and, they just happen to pull him over for following too closely? Interesting. Watch the other one. You can see the arm. Okay, I'll have to check it out. Diana Rose, welcome. Miss Cobb, also a new member. I got permission from Dark Reality Channel for anyone to use the video of this stop. Is it longer than this? What is it called? Dark Reality Channel. Dark Reality Channel. Let's see here. All right, well, let's do it. And Tom giving a little plug to this channel. I have no idea what type of stuff they do, but they posted this. So let's see if there's any more here. I think 216 is where we stopped before. Yeah. All right. So we'll start it here and let's see what new information we get.
I'm not sure there's two shootings, but they did shoot somebody,
Let's see.
and then you don't know about that actually. They were there, out of the window or something.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. So do me a favor, don't follow too close, okay? All right. Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right. I mean, I don't know. You guys tell me. We'll watch it again for Tom's sake. Do you think this was awkward how he picked it up with his left hand? Also, we don't know if he's right-handed or left-handed, do we?
I'm not sure there's two shoes if they did shoot somebody,
Let's see.
and then you don't know about that actually. They were apparently shooting out of the window or something.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. So do me a favor, don't follow too close, okay?
I don't know. I feel like I'd have to be reading into it to think that that was awkward or weird.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not seeing much there personally. But thanks for giving us that other channel too, Tom. Azam, my 7-month member anniversary. I've been here since JD. I can't thank you enough, Peter, for the community you built here. The best chat and the best creator. Thank you so much, Azam. I think you're the longest standing member still. 7 months, because I just looked the other day and I saw some people's 6-month anniversaries. I don't see all of that stuff click, and we've been in contact with YouTube to try to see how we can see it. And for some reason we can't, but thank you for letting me know, Azam, and you are loved here. And as Gloria says, happy anniversary, Azam. Hit that like button if you guys haven't already, please, and subscribe to the page because so much information is coming out about this. We've got some interesting stuff planned actually in the future. Fingers crossed that it actually happens regarding this case. So we will continue to follow this case, and I will continue to answer your questions now on it. Kimberly Arnold, thank you for the super sticker. Pegasus, was this a way to look inside the car? Could be, right? Because anything that's in plain view or in plain sight, were they going to see the murder weapon in the back seat or blood on the seat or blood somewhere in the car? They could see all that stuff. They pull them over for a valid reason. And again, being pulled over twice for following too closely in the same state, I mean, that's just really unusual. How many times have you guys ever, as a chat, let me know in the chat, how many times have you ever been pulled over for following too closely, let alone twice in the same day? Maybe he just follows too closely. Who knows? Debbie has also been here 7 months. Yeah, the familiar faces and names are just the best. It's a really great crew here. Tyler, I sent you an email with an invitation to come on my show. We would love to have you. I will have to look at that again. Tyler Feller. What kind of show is it? Depends, right? I'm happy to go on other people's shows all the time. I've been on other subscribers of our channel, like Rich Cat's show before. So usually if I can find time to do it, I'm down. So thanks, Tyler. Pegasus, was this a way to look inside the car? Sorry, I already read that one. Diana Rose, thank you so much for the super sticker here. Tom N, I would use the closest hand to the officer. So here's what I'll say about that. And again, we're getting into the meta here and really speculating. But one could say, if I'm sitting, this is my right hand. I know on screen it's mirrored, but if my dad's sitting right here and I, reach across him with my right hand, maybe that's more awkward than reaching with my left. I don't know, Tom. I think I would use my right hand because I'm right-handed, so I'm with you there. But I don't know. I can't draw too much from that just yet. Lita, these cops must have known there was a lookout for the Elantra. I would think. I mean, I knew, right? You knew. I'm not a cop. So if we knew about it, then I would think this cop did too. Yes, Minx, way too much speculation. Oh, this chat's flying. I'm left-handed and so would have picked it up with my right hand. I don't know. Interesting. Second stop was speeding. First stop was tailgating. I thought the first stop, though, he was saying, you didn't have enough car lengths between you and the other car. 10 miles an hour, you need 1 car length. You're going 70, you need 7 car lengths. So I thought he was still explaining to him that he was following too closely. I could have missed that, though. Not that it was very important why he was pulled over. Tank said, who stops for the cops? Well, I do. All right. I think that's all we got for today. Man, we hit documents, we hit videos, we hit body cam footage. So we're trying to analyze all of the information we have in this case. We're trying to break it down from the legal perspective. We're trying to understand it from the legal perspective. We're trying to see where this case is going. Hopefully there are cameras in the courtroom so we can follow what happens in the hearings and eventually the trial. Yes, Ashley K, don't forget to hit that like button on your way out. As soon as that probable cause affidavit gets unsealed, we will be talking about it within a day or two. Gloria, pullovers, wondered if so, FBI could change over. I'm not sure what you're asking here, Gloria. Sorry. All right. So, yes, best chat in the game, best channel in the game here. Thanks to you guys and the questions that you have. As always, this was really interesting. So I appreciate it. I also appreciate all you guys that reach out on Instagram and Twitter at Tragos Law. Give me a follow on there as well. So we can go back and forth on documents and stuff that you pop out and other cases that you're interested in. So I appreciate you guys so much for joining me today. That's all we have. Until next time, we're going to go out on I Am Wonderfully and Fearfully Made, this super sticker. Thank you very much. Actually, Michael threw one in here at the end. I think this way to see if there was probable cause to detain them. I don't know. I really don't know. All right. I appreciate you all. Until next time.